Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the Hero Arts and Joanne.com's Make Yourself at Home kit. I've been doing this the first Thursday of every month, and today I get to share with you the November 2021 kit. I have all my goodies here, so we're going to do a little walkthrough, and then we're going to make some projects using it. In this kit this month, you get a background stamp. This is called the Holiday Graphic Pattern Bold Prints, and it is nice because there's lots of holiday themes inside this background. There's reindeer, there's doves, snowflakes, Christmas trees. And speaking of trees, you get a 4x6 stamp set also. This here is called the Color Layering Nordic Trees stamp set. I also have the frame cut that will cut out all of those trees, and that is included in the Make Yourself at Home kit too. And now you have another goodie bag. We're going to take a look. You get 4 5.5 by 8.5 sheets of cardstock in 2 different colors. You also get some red embossing powder, and it's a full-size jar, which is nice. You get some eco glitter. Eco glitter is nice because it is biodegradable, and we'll be using this on some of our projects today. And you get a full package of it, and it's a real pretty green. This is your cardstock. Again, 4 of each sheet. Basically, they're just half of a full-size sheet. So these are great sturdy pieces of cardstock that you can create card bases with. For one of my cards today, we're going to make a card base out of those. You get 4 mini ink cubes in 4 different colors. Bubblegum, you get the light green is green apple, dark green is fresh lawn, and then you get a strawberry. So lots are packed in here. I'm excited to try the eco glitter. Again, it's biodegradable, and it is let's see, it is a plant-based material. Well, that's pretty interesting. So we are going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to take our background stamp. I put it in my large Misty here. We're inking up the bottom of our background stamp with the darkest green ink that we have. This is Fresh Lawn. We're going about halfway up with it. And my line is not straight across. I kind of wanted it to be varied. It just kind of makes a smoother transition when you add another color. So we're going to take our lighter green ink, which is green apple. We're going to go over that mid area first, press down really good, and then we're going to add more of that green ink to the upper portion of our panel. I'm using a panel size that measures 4.25 by 5.5 inches, so it's a card front panel. We're going to make 3 A2 size cards today, and we are going to end up trimming that down. I'm also going to take my green cardstock here. I went ahead and cleaned off my background stamp. I just used a baby wipe. You need to lower it just a little bit, and we're going to do a tone on tone. So I'm just making sure it's going to be fully covered. We're going to ink up our stamp this time with our watermark ink. Just going to go over it, and this is just going to create some pretty detailed impression that's slightly darker than our card panel here. And I just took one of those sheets and cut it in half, so it measures 4.25 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to press down really good, and I think that looks great. I'm going to create my card base with one of the sheets of green cardstock. We're just going to fold it in half, reinforce it with the bone folder, and then we'll take our watermark panel, add a little adhesive behind it, and then place that on the front of our card base, if we can get it the right way. Next, we're going to take our inked panel, and I am trimming it down to 4 inches by 5.25, but that's going to change in a little bit. I'm going to take the coordinating die from our color layering Nordic Tree stamp set. We're just going to use the die for this. I want to cut out a window in this panel, so we'll put it in the center, and then I'll run this through my die cutting machine. And then if you want to use that negative piece, actually it's positive Christmas tree, for a tag, you very well could, but we're gonna just use the negative piece for our card. Next, I have some white cardstock here, and I'm using some double-sided tape. I'm adding 3 layers, kind of filling in the background. The double-sided tape is nice because it's thin, and I can overlap, and you can't see the overlap. If you have adhesive sheets, you could do that with this also. But I just covered my white panel. I'm going to bring in some scratch paper, and then we're going to go over this panel with our eco glitter, our biodegradable glitter. This is really nice because this glitter actually doesn't have that static like most glitters do, at least not today for me. And I found it really easy to work with. I'm just going to cut a small hole and add some glitter to the top of that double-sided tape. And then just using my hand, I'm going to spread it around. The size of my panel I made sure was a little bit larger than my Christmas tree. This is going to be what we're going to put behind our die cut out Christmas tree. So you want to make it sure it's large enough to put behind there. I'm just pressing it down into that double-sided tape really good. And then we're going to go ahead and fill in this bottom area. I kind of missed a spot. And then we'll tap it off really good. And that's going to make a nice shimmery background. I'm just going to fold this in half and set it aside. We're going to use this once more, and I can funnel it back into my package in just a minute. Okay, what I like to do is we need to trim this down a bit, but we're going to add adhesive behind it, put our Christmas tree behind it, and when I have both of these together, we can add this to our card front. I did decide to trim down our stamp panel here. We're going to take a 1/4 inch off of all 4 sides. So this panel ends up measuring 3 1/4 inches wide by 4 1/2 inches tall. I wanted more of that background, that the tone-on-tone background that we created, to show through on the sides. So I thought a smaller panel would work out better. I'm just going to line up my glitter behind it. Again, we're going to trim off the excess here, so we have a little more room. And then again, we already have adhesive behind it, so we'll layer both of these together and then just press it down, making sure it's centered. Now that top piece isn't glued down. We're going to pick that up, and then we're going to add a little dimension. So we'll flip over this panel, and then we're going to put foam adhesive behind here, and then replace it back on our card base. Just a little dimension just makes for an extra nice card, I think. Now after we have this adhered, we need to stamp our sentiment. There's lots of sentiments in the Color Layering Nordic Tree stamp set, and I chose the longest one, and it says, "Have a very Merry Christmas." I'm just stamping it with my Hero Arts Intense black ink on a strip of white cardstock. I like to stamp towards the bottom, and then I'll take my sentiment and we'll bring in the paper trimmer, and then we just have to trim off one side. If I get it straight, which I happen to get straight today, but sometimes I get it crooked and I have to cut both sides. But let's trim this down, and then I'll use my scissors, and we're going to fishtail the right and the left side of our sentiment. And then I have some small foam squares. We're going to put this right over our Christmas tree, so I just need foam squares on the left and right of my sentiment. Now after I popped my sentiment on my card, I did double up on some natural twine, and I added that just above the half of my sentiment. And then just for a little added sparkle, I went through my stash and found a silver star. I'm going to place that just above the tree, just for some sparkle, to go with that nice glitter we have. And then that finishes card number 1. Now we're going to move along to our next project. I have another panel. I'm going to treat it with my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to add adhesive behind it, and this is going to go at a diagonal over my background stamp. Now I'm going to do this kind of opposite because I do have some watermark ink already on my background. What this is going to do is going to pick up my panel, and it's going to stick it down to the bottom of my MISTI. I already removed my mouse pad for this. Now we're going to ink up once more with our watermark ink, press down really good, and since we put it at an angle, our background is going to be at an angle, a nice diagonal pattern. It looks really pretty with this background stamp. Now I stamped it a few times. I'm going to bring in some white embossing powder, and then we're going to go over our stamped image, and then this way we have some white detail on our green card base. The width of this panel measures 2 3/4 inches wide, and so it's 5.5 inches tall. I went ahead and melted my panel, and that's good to go. And then next we're going to bring in some white cardstock, and we're going to stamp the solid Christmas tree in our stamp set with our lightest ink this time. So we're using green apple. Now your ink cubes are going to be a lot more juicier than mine. You see me stamping a few times. You won't have to do that because your mini ink cubes are going to be a lot more juicier. Mine happen to be drying out a little bit, but yours are going to be nice and brand new. Next we're going to take our darker green ink, our fresh lawn, and we're taking a detail layer of the tree. This detail layer is the tree that has the arrow at the very top of it. So if you have your stamp set and you want to follow along, the arrow at the very top is our second project tree. We're going to stamp that so we have a tone on tone, and I think that's going to work out perfectly. Now after we have this done, I'm going to go ahead and die cut this out with the coordinating frame cut, and then I'm bringing in a tag die set from Hero Arts. I'm going to use the third largest, and then I'm also going to use the tag topper and die cut it out with white cardstock, and then also with that same green cardstock that we've been using. Once those are die cut out along with my Christmas tree, we're going to take our embossed panel, and I already have adhesive behind it. We're going to add that to our card base. Now I created a card base with white cardstock from my stash, but I think any color cardstock you have would probably work really nice. Even a craft cardstock would look really nice for this card, guys. Okay, I'm taking the tag reinforcement piece, and I'm alternating. So the green tag will have the white reinforcement, and then the white tag will have the green. I die cut out two because I wanted to kind of crisscross them. I'm going to add a little adhesive to the green tag and then crisscross our white one right on top. And then I also just free-handed a little snowy hillside. You can see here that was the same width of those tags. That's the perfect place to stamp my sentiment. So we took the Happy Holidays and we're going to stamp it with our Hero Arts Intense Black ink on the very bottom. We're going to flip over our homemade snowbank and put this in the bottom of the white tag. And then we're going to take our Christmas tree. Actually, let's go ahead and thread both of our tags. Now I'm using that same natural colored twine. Jute cord would work perfect for this too, but we'll thread it through our first white tag, and then I'm going to tie a bow with it on the white tag. But we're also going to thread it through our green tag, but we're not going to tie a bow. We're going to loop it around the back. I'll show you here in just a minute how I like to do that. We'll thread it through. I'm going to open that loop up and then add the ends between it, loop it around the back, almost creating like an S shape, and then we can tack that piece down so the ends of it are hanging off to the side. We'll add a piece of foam tape behind it, remove the release paper, and then add that. I would say in the middle of our card here. I am going to trim the tail of my green tag, and then I tied a bow with the white twine on my white swag. That was a little tongue twister on my white tag, on my white twag. But then we are going to go ahead and take our Christmas tree. I thought about tucking it behind the snowbank, but it was still pretty. I thought we'd just put it right on top. And I did use foam adhesive for that. Now in our layering Nordic Tree stamp set, there's a few added little embellishments. There's a little bird. I'm going to stamp that with my black ink 3 times right next to the tree, and I think that was just the right amount. Last but not least, I'm going to bring in some Nouveau Crystal drops, and I'm going to add a little bit of white detail to our tree. Since our back was green and white, I thought we'd do the same with our Christmas tree on the front of our tag. So just little dots that are over the existing dots that we stamped with the tree. And then that finishes our second project. Now for our final project today, we're going to create three different Christmas trees. So I have another piece of that green cardstock, and we are going to stamp our Christmas tree that we haven't used yet. We're going to put that in our mini Misty this time. And I did treat my paper with my anti-static powder tool. We're going to ink up our Christmas tree here with our watermark ink. And we'll stamp this and then go over this with white embossing powder. Now we have red embossing powder that's in the kit this month. I think this set would be fabulous if you did the same exact with the red cardstock. That's the nice thing. And then using the red embossing powder. I think that would be super pretty. Today I want to kind of keep it green themed, but the red would be just as pretty, guys. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the Christmas trees, the other two Christmas trees that are in the stamp set, with the other two inks, and then die cut those out. And then I have some craft colored cardstock that I'm going to use one of the Hero Arts wood grain frames. This is the middle size one, and I just die cut that out with the craft. Since we use natural twine, I think the craft's going to go really good with our projects. Now I have white and green cardstock. We're again going to make some homemade snowbanks. I am following along the curve of my white homemade snowbank, and then we'll add adhesive behind it and then tack that down to our green. Rather than layering it right on top of each other, I'm offsetting it, and I think that gives a nice effect. We're going to add adhesive behind our wood grain frame, and then we're going to tack down our snowy hillside. The nice thing about this hillside being longer is you can kind of position it in your frame where you want it. And I think this is the nice spot for the snowy hills here. There is excess overhanging, so we have to trim that off. And then once we have this done, I'm going to bring in some foam adhesive, and we're going to add a little dimension behind our frame. We're going to pop it up with some foam tape. For this card, I'm using one of my white card bases that I brought in from my stash. We're going to go ahead and add our frame right in the center. And then we can go ahead and arrange how we want our trees. So this is the tree we heat embossed with white embossing powder. We're going to tuck this in, kind of overlapping the frame. This tree we stamped with our Fresh Lawn ink. We're actually going to put that towards the back. We're going to tuck it underneath that green hillside in the background. And then our lightest tree that we used our green apple ink with, we're going to tuck that under the very front of our frame. And I think that's like the perfect trio of trees. Once everything is adhered, this tree we have to add a foam adhesive to one side. The other side's overlapping the frame. And then we're going to stamp our sentiment. This says Season's Greetings at the very top with our black ink. Now in our stamp set there is some tree toppers. I chose the one that had a flower with dots around it. I just used the same color of ink as the green apple ink and stamped that just above my green apple tree. Now for bells and whistles, this is with the hindsight. You could actually do this before you layer everything together, but I'm going to use my Hero Arts precision glue, and everywhere that there's a dot on these trees, I'm going to add a dot of glue. We're going to add a little sparkle. So we're going to bring in some scratch paper and then our Eco Glitter. We're going to go over those dots, and then we're going to just tap off the excess. Anywhere that I had tape showing the glitter wanted to stick, that's why I suggest maybe doing this before you assemble your card, but you have to wait for it to dry, and I was a little impatient to do that. But that's card number 3. Then we have our very first card, and then this is our card number 2. These are the 3 projects I made today with the Hero Arts and the Joann.com's Make Yourself at Home kit. Now, if you guys are new, the Make Yourself at Home kits are only available at Joann.com, and I'll leave that link down below. But have a great day. Thanks for joining me. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.